Alright, so MRE Pizza is finally a reality. And just what is it about MRE Pizza that makes it worth making a video like this? And why would I refer to the story of MRE Pizza as a legend? Well, if you know the answer to those questions, you probably don't need to watch this video. This is more something that's geared towards somebody who maybe has just heard of MRE Pizza, either because it's new or somewhere down the line when it seems like just yet another MRE product, and what's the big deal? Or even possibly sometime in the future when it's been discontinued, and somebody might be wondering just what was the big deal with MRE Pizza. And just to be clear right from the start, I do want to mention that this is not going to be a full review of these MRE pizzas. We will take a look at one of them while we're discussing the story, but a full review will be seen in another video. I'll put links to all of my MRE Pizza videos down below, including a full review of a Black Dog surplus ration that included MRE Pizza, as well as a full review of just some of the pizzas. And as this video is in the MRE Basics series, that's pretty much what we're going to be talking about, the story behind the MRE Pizza. Just what is the story? MREs were introduced in 1981. For quite a few years after they were introduced, there were 12 set menus that, to be honest, weren't very good, especially compared to what's offered now. Eventually, the Natick labs, where the MREs were developed, began a continuing effort to develop and improve all aspects of MREs, including taste and variety. They field test new menu items before introducing them, and ask soldiers for input, suggestions, and requests. And one of the most common requests has always been pizza. In addition to giving soldiers the nutrients they need to keep them active and alive, MREs also provide a morale boost, giving soldiers a bit of a taste from home, or at least that's the idea anyway. All kinds of comfort foods, from beef stew, chili and macaroni and spaghetti with meat sauce, to chicken noodle soup, beef brisket, and cheese and veggie omelets. Well, actually scratch that last one. But anyway, all kinds of comfort foods have been included in MREs over the years. Pizza seems like an obvious choice to add to the mix. So why has it taken so long? Well, I don't really know the specifics, but I know that the idea of MRE Pizza has been around for many years, even decades. And pizza is a pretty simple food, or at least it seems so at first glance. A simple pizza, like the kind you might make for yourself at home, includes very few ingredients. Pizza crust dough, tomato sauce, and cheese, along with whatever kind of toppings you want to add. But while buying a pizza crust or some dough at a grocery store is simple enough, actually making your own dough is quite a bit more complicated, as it contains yeast, and there are issues having to do with timing and rising that are involved. Now, of course, an MRE pizza needs to be shelf-stable. And while Natick Labs have been making shelf-stable foods for decades, and shelf-stable bread products have been in MREs for years, the idea of pizza being shelf-stable makes it much more complicated. The pizza that they eventually did develop still seems kind of simple at first glance. Basically, there's 3 ingredients: crust, sauce, and cheese, with pepperoni chunks that have been added on top. But, in reality, all 3 of those simple ingredients ended up being very complicated to develop and to make work with each other. And if we look at the ingredient list, we can get an idea of just how complicated the process was. The 3 main components are broken down into their individual ingredients. You can see we have the crust. It says crust, but then a lot of things are in the crust. And then there's pasteurized processed mozzarella cheese product. Sounds really appetizing. And that has its own list of ingredients. And then there's the tomato sauce, which actually is somewhat of a simple list. And of course, the 4th ingredient is the pepperoni. So why was this such a labor to undertake, and why did it take so long? Let's take a look at one of these slices of MRE pizza as we discuss it further. It certainly looks simple enough. Looks like a pretty basic piece of pizza, probably most closely related to what you think of when you think of frozen pizza. But of course we have to remember that this pizza is shelf-stable, which means that if you were to open one of these pouches in about 3 years, the pizza should still look and taste very similar to this one, which was packaged just a couple of months ago on February 2nd, 2018. And the problem with making this happen is threefold. First off, you need a shelf-stable pizza crust, and it has to seem more like what you think of as a pizza crust than the standard wheat snack bread that's been included in MREs for many years. Now, this is perfectly edible bread product, but not something that would make a very appetizing pizza crust. Also, and maybe more importantly, the crust needs to be able to handle being stored for up to 3 to 5 years with a tomato-based sauce sitting on top of it, without becoming soggy or otherwise ruined over that period of time. The second problem is that sauce. Pasta with tomato-based sauces have been a staple of MRE since the beginning, so it would seem like that would be the easy part of this. But of course, in this case, the sauce would have to be sitting directly on top of the crust, which brings us back to the first problem of the interaction between crust and sauce over time. And then the third problem was the cheese. I don't think it was as big of a problem as the other two, but if you've seen the reviews of MRE Pizza, where it's heated up, the cheese never seems to melt. It heats up and maybe browns a little bit, but it still looks the same as it does here when it's cold. And apparently they decided that they needed to use a heat-stable cheese, because even though an MRE is ready to eat as it is, meaning cold, they're usually better when they heat it up. And it would seem to make more sense to have a cheese that wouldn't really melt all over the place and make a big mess when heated up, since we are talking about a handheld food here. So once they did all the research and development and spent all the years working on that, and they thought they had all those problems taken care of, MRE Pizza was finally announced as a new MRE component around March of 2017, and it was expected to be included in that year's MRE lineup. But then it never showed up. Apparently they had all the problems taken care of and thought it was ready for production, but the pizza didn't end up passing the test of time. When introducing a new MRE product, I can't imagine it's much fun to have to wait 3 to 5 years to test its shelf-stable qualities before putting it out there. Natick Labs has found a way to shorten that process. Instead of waiting 3 to 5 years, they put the components into a box at 100 degrees Fahrenheit for 6 months. And that's obviously not a true test of how the components would hold up under good storage conditions, but it does give them an idea of how they would hold up over a few years without having to wait a few years to find out. And as it turned out, the new pizza didn't do very well with the aging process. Apparently it came out of the process still edible, but with a noticeable and unappetizing brown color to it. After a little more tweaking, the pizza was finally ready in early 2018. Which brings us to now. Normally a newly introduced MRE item wouldn't be available to the civilian world, in the MRE review community, until the MREs they are in are at least several months to a year old. And that's because they first have to be issued to units and soldiers, and then find their way into the hands of interested parties. So even though the pizza's out there, I didn't think we'd actually be seeing it this soon. Obviously, as you can see here, we are. And as it turns out, the saga of MREs has come to a much quicker end than I really had expected. And that's because Bridgeford was picked to be the manufacturer. And Bridgeford specializes in shelf-stable bread products, and they already have a number of their products, including sandwiches, wraps, and breakfast/dessert items that are found in MREs and First Strike rations. Unlike the companies that make most of the components in MREs, Bridgeford is a commercial company, and they're able to sell their products directly to consumers and to retailers. So once the MRE Pizza finally became available to the US government, it also became available to the general public, which is how I came to be in possession of some of these examples. And if you want to buy some to try it out for yourself, I'll put a link down below to a place where you can do so. As of April 2018, when I'm filming this video, I don't know exactly when shelf-stable pizza will be found in genuine issue MREs. It may already be. And I don't know when we'll start seeing reviews of those MREs. But in the meantime, we can all try out the long-awaited MRE Pizza for ourselves. And we can decide for ourselves if it was worth the wait. Thank you for watching.